I'll go ahead and get started for this and record. And so that way we can, you can feel free to share this with other people on your team that need it. So first of all, thank you for being willing to be part of the OSA faculty-led summer programs this year. I know for all of us, it has been quite a bit of time since we have had the opportunity to travel with students, and a lot has changed in the last 2 years. So this meeting is a quick check-in just to provide you with some updates to think about in terms of the application process and the onboarding process of students, and answer any questions that you all may have. The travel and logistics and kind of responsibilities of risk management this year are different than they've been in the past, which will, I think for whether you are a seasoned leader of study abroad programs or whether this is your first time, there will be some extra steps and hurdles as you're preparing students to travel in this day and age. So we're going to talk a bit about the application process, what's going to be happening over the next 2 weeks, and then I want to answer any questions that you all might have at this time. So to begin with, the application closed last night at midnight. And so Joni has sent, I think, all programs, and if not all, almost all programs, the updated lists of how many students are in each program and in each course. So in general, those are looking pretty good. We have a couple of scenarios where we have an over-enrolled course. Big shout out to Holly Flora, who currently has 28, and she may be taking a few more. And
Annie, some of us were in teams, so I'm trying to get them back with you guys.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah.
I'm recording it. So do you want me to pause for a second? So,
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I just want to
Sure.
give them an instructions.
So we were just discussing that we've closed the application deadline last night at midnight, and we're just going to briefly go over some logistics around travel and around the application process this year. Due to COVID, there is less flexibility. As many of you know, in host country locations, there are housing crises issues. And so our drop dead dates have a lot less flexibility than they have in the past. And there's also some travel things to prepare students for. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and then with plenty of time to answer any questions that you all may have. So you all received via email the current enrollment lists for your programs and your courses. And if you haven't, then you will receive them shortly. Joni has got up early this morning to start working on that in preparation of this meeting. And so you'll be able to see if your course has met the course maximum and the course minimum. For those of you that are if you have a course that is under enrolled, which is less than 5 students, then you have the Excel spreadsheet, which shows you the incomplete applications. So incomplete applications, the only ones that we are accepting late from that list, those incomplete applications, they're missing maybe a faculty member that didn't complete a recommendation, or they have a passport that's in the renewal process. So I would encourage you, if you see those incomplete in a course that you have that's under enrolled, or just take a look at your incomplete applicants and see if they're for your courses. And I would reach out to that student and get a sense of how long they think it will be for them to complete it. Obviously, faculty recs, we're sending reminders to the faculty daily to get that recommendation in, and we won't penalize students for that. And so we'll be working with them on the back end here. If they have to change a recommender because their faculty member is not responding, we can do that. With passports, there's not a whole lot of flexibility on the deadline of receiving a passport renewal. We're going to work as best we can program by program. there are some bookings that will require that students have their passport in hand. And so this is going to be a program by program decision of the wiggle room of when they have to have their renewed passport in. So if you're talking with students that are in the renewal process, make sure to remind them that they should expedite their passport. In general, March 15th is the break eve is the date that we have to send for most of our programs a final participant list. Our office can also generate a letter for students that can help them get an expedited passport even faster. Casey, you have a question there?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in that I just renewed my kids' passports and I did regular processing time thinking that it would take 12 weeks and I got their passports in 3 weeks. So that's good news. It does appear that things are ramping back up with passport renewals and hopefully there won't be any major holdups.
That's great. Laura?
The March 15th deadline date, does that also mean that they have to have their deposits in to us so we know that they've put a financial commitment to it?
Yeah, so here's the timeline for us. So we should know today the application's closed. We today sent off this list to financial aid, they're going to do the financial aid rankings for us of students so that we can award scholarships. And so we send out student acceptance letters with any sort of scholarship notification. So students can decide based on if they're receiving a scholarship, if they want to accept the program. So we hope to send out all letters on March the 8th. So students will be notified of their acceptance in the program on March 8th. They will also be notified if they've received any sort of scholarship in the program March 8th. And then they'll have about, March 11th to March 14th-ish to commit to the program, which would mean paying their deposit and then changing their status in the application to committed. So March 8th, the students will actually be notified. So you guys are getting this information without them actually knowing that they've been accepted yet, but they will be working with you. So the next step that you're going to be as faculty members working with your OSA representative on will be to put the final tweaks on the acceptance letters for these students. And in that, you are asked to do 2 pre-departure orientations with your students. And so you'll need to set those dates for the pre-departures, and those will be included in the acceptance email. So, and that in general happens in the month of April, and you can set that as you wish. You can do it via online or in person. Though I would say in terms of, especially with larger groups of students and in terms of setting expectations and group bonding and kind of working out some issues ahead of time, in person can be really helpful, at least one of them in person. So students are meeting each other so that you're able to kind of address in person some changes. Alexandra, I see you have your hand up.
But it is Joni or it's your office who will send out those reminders until March 15th to students
to get their documents in. Yes. So they get an automatic thing through the system. And then they also, we're going to have our study abroad advisors also reach out directly with the programs that they're on. So for Paris, you'll be working with Mike, who's going to be working with all of those students that have incompletes here and there to figure out what they have. Alexandra, I know you had some questions that you're also keeping an internal list of students for your courses and things like that. So if you see discrepancies, you can talk with Mike about that, and Joni, you can put them both on the same list, and we can figure out what the correct enrollment is, and we'll just double check with students and let them know what their courses are that they're enrolled in.
Yeah, the lists don't really, I have a very different list from this list, and there are 26 students actually still missing who have incompletes. So it's about half of the group has incompletes.
Yeah. So some of these are gonna shift as students get in passport numbers,
Okay.
and as they get in their passports or as they complete their recommendations. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions at this time?
On the sheet, you've got listings of complete, incomplete. You've also got colors of yellow, black, blue and pink. Is there any difference between those? I was trying to understand. 'Cause there's
Carolyn, I'll get with you after because yours is just a different report.
Okay.
Ours
okay.
is a little different because sometimes, we're looking at, are they seniors or not, so that they can get
Okay.
scholarship money and things like that. So, but really concentrate on complete or incomplete for right now until we get the scholarship info back.
Okay.
Beth.
If kids are told they can't go on the program, I guess it's too late for them to shift programs, to go to a different program.
We want to shift them soon, but we can definitely, our application date has closed, but
Right.
we will work with a student that you all tell us. So for example, if Beth, if a student comes to you and they want to get in both of your classes and you want them on the program and it's before March 15th, you can reach out to Joni and we can open an application just for that student. Or if you have a student that is on your program, but in fact, they want to shift on to another program and it's before March 15th, we can shift their application.
Yeah, that's helpful. And just to the rest of you guys, we didn't have our normal, we're low compared to some of your other groups. So I guess that would be the thing. If there's anybody on one of your other programs that wanted to do ours, although ours is a different program, but I just mentioned that.
Yeah. So all of the programs are making. So in terms, I know that some of these programs that you book your housing directly. And so one, make sure that you look at your course enrollment. So that will help you know, you want to make sure that your course enrollment is getting to, that you have at least 5 students to know how many courses that you'll be teaching. And if that's part of your factoring in terms of if you're booking housing or no, keep that in mind. But all programs are planned to run. So we are moving forward in terms of making booking. There, as I mentioned at the beginning, and due to COVID, there's housing crises throughout Europe, and so we're dealing with that on all programs for both faculty and for students, and so that's just something to keep in mind. And that is also the reason why our deadlines are a bit are harder than they have been in the past, where we don't have as much flexibility as we've had to let students slide in a bit later. So in general, March 15th is the hard deadline. Program by program, in certain cases, we can reach out and see if there's going to be potential to get an extra student in if they're late on a passport renewal or something. But in general, we're looking at March 15th for the final list and courses. So for your pre-departure orientations, as you set those, this is just a reminder that there's going to be 2 upcoming faculty trainings, one on intercultural learning and embedded co-curricular activities in your study abroad program, and another on health, safety, and security that's going to kind of really talk about those 2 issues. And those will also help give you some ideas of content that you want to put into your pre-departure orientation with students. I know that many of you have done this and are familiar with the pre-departure process with students. And so we are, there's also a lot of new faculty this particular summer. So take some time as your group to make sure that everyone's on the same page. We are also happy to help as a resource. The advisors on your program and myself are happy to be involved, can help put together some of the health and safety slides if that's helpful, can help set some standards if possible. So work with your team and with your Office of Study Abroad representative to sort of build out those 2 pre-departures. in terms of pre-departures, one thing to particularly concentrate on is help preparing students to travel during COVID. And for you to stay up to date on the current policies in country where you are taking your group. So first is that in the locations where we are this summer, it's in general, I think most programs are 48 hours. I think Stockholm might be 72. But prior to departure, the students have to take a PCR test. And so making sure that you're talking to students how they're going to take the PCR test, where they're going to take it, and that they know that they physically take that document with them and they have that. And also just as a team that you all are talking about this, what will happen if you have a student that does not get their test on time and can't travel or get stuck somewhere, so that you all are prepared to handle that. Same with quarantine. In general, we have kind of a quarantine plan in place, worked out, but make sure that you're familiar with what you would do in the case of quarantine on your program with students. And any sort of testing policies for COVID as well. We recommend that students, bring their, that you're reminding them to bring their own sanitary equipment, that they're wearing the KN95 masks, that they bring a thermometer with them, that they bring rapid tests. That's helpful as well. And that, on many programs, you will have testing upon arrival. So you can talk with if you're unsure what your testing protocol is, you can touch base with your OSA representative who can let you know more about that. And yes, so spending time in your pre-departure talking about students. I want to I have some questions coming in the chat. I'll start with the hands. Alexandra, you had a hand up.
I just want to say quickly something. The 48 hours, everybody should really verify when the 48 hours apply. Some countries in Europe, it is 48 hours between departure and landing, which makes it very difficult to get PCR tests. So you have to have PCR test result in a minimum of 24 hours here before you leave. So it's not 48 hours between departure, off departure, but it's between departure and landing. So that needs to be communicated to the students.
Yes, that's a very, very important point. And then also for them to factor in if they have to factor in if they have layovers, they have to factor in if they miss a flight. So
yeah,
also talking to them about where, so if they do miss a flight departing the US, for example, in most airports, there's a place to get a PCR test, but it's more expensive there. But just, talking students through so that they're prepared if something goes wrong, if they don't get their PCR test in time, what are they going to do? There's a lot of anxiety for traveling with students right now. And for summer programs, you all are dealing with a lot of first-time travelers, first-time international travelers. So the more that you can prepare and be there, the more that you give them access to you. So whether it's through WhatsApp or whatever, so that if they're in the airport and they have one of these issues, that they can work through it. Michelle, you had a question as well, or a comment?
I do. What's the role of IES here? I don't know which programs partnered with them, but Paris did. So this, I think it's, I have that question kind of broadly, but it originally came up when you talked about what if they have to isolate, what if they have to quarantine or something like that. Where does IES come in?
Yeah, great. So IES, many of you are working with a third-party provider. So IES Paris, DIS Stockholm, as examples, CIEE, Italy, et cetera. So these are your on the ground support. So IES in the case of Paris will be your emergency 24/7 emergency support. So if a student is sick and needs to go to the hospital, if they need to COVID and quarantine, they have the setup for that student to do that. They have a room reserved where that can happen, and they help with that. They also will help you with all of the logistics. So for example, many of the bus reservations, many of the ticketing will happen through IES, and you will have an on the ground extra support with you in most of your co-curricular excursions that is local, that knows the place. And then they also have kind of a physical space and center for students to go, so that they have resources there for them. They have through the staff on the ground, they'll also have be able to keep them up to date about cultural events happening through the city. So they're your go-to for safety and security. They're also running a lot of the logistics for you, since bookings and those sort of things have become much more complicated.
So hypothetically, a student gets sick, our first call is to IES. I mean, not like, life in crisis sick, but comes test positive, let's say. So we call IES, they come in, and then we kind of back off. And I mean, we monitor, but we don't have direct responsibility. Is that right?
Yes, you are they're kind of the behind the scenes, and you're kind of the front face of a lot of this. They will be the ones that will set up the room, we'll give the room, and we'll help coordinate food and things like that. But it may be that you all are helping to deliver the food, but they're helping you arrange where you're getting it and that sort of thing. So it's more of a, we want students to feel like their faculty are the front face, but in fact, IES is helping you out with a lot of the logistics. Alexandra, is that different from your conversation?
But that's very different from what I understood from IES. Throughout all my conversations, it was like that they would be, yes, our backbone of risk and safety management, and that they would then also help in quarantine the students and be responsible to deliver food or water, whatever. We are still responsible for the academic component, so that we make sure that the students can follow the classes. I mean, that is not IES's part, right?
Right.
So we have to make sure that there's a Zoom link provided that the student can join, or we have a recording or whatever, or the student can make up the class. That is needs to be determined by the faculty member on a very individual basis. But my understanding from a risk management point of view was that IES is responsible for safety, security, is available 24/7, has to join us only on excursions where we leave the city. As from my understanding, as they are not part of any of our excursions within the city. They don't book any excursions within the city. That's all on the faculty member, and that was discussed with my group because we wanted to do that ourselves. So in my particular case, it would really be the points that are listed in addendum that IES would be responsible for and join the program. But that they are in the back and we still have to do all the work. That was not my understanding. If that is really the case, we should not have brought them on board.
I'm sorry. I meant to communicate exactly what you communicated. We're on the same page.
Okay.
The faculty are in charge of academics and are the face of the program. And that's what I meant to say by that. And so if you have a student that is sick in your course and sick on program, you want to be involved with their life. You don't want to just say, oh, they're not here anymore. I'm going to let IES deal with it. IES is going to be taking care with the health and safety, but we want the students to feel connected to their faculty, even in the case of those sickness. And so, as you say, they're the backbone. They're going to help make sure that you can concentrate on your academics. And yes, each program is different. I know that on the Paris program, you all are organizing many of your in city excursions on your own, and as you have in the past, and that IES is moving pretty much just when you are outside of the city in terms of accompaniment. Anyone else have any questions on that front? So, these conversations around COVID are going to continue, and you'll need to have quite a few of these conversations with students. Another policy that that we have in place for summer programs is that due to the COVID restrictions, students during programs should not leave the country. So making sure that that is clear to students, that on their free travel weekends, they're not allowed to leave the country, and that is because we don't want them getting stuck somewhere. And the other thing I'm just going to mention without us spending much time on it is that summer programs are moving forward. The 2-lane travel ban has not officially been lifted yet. And there will be communication coming out about this that is going to affect our students. I had a call with the provost office yesterday, who said that they will be sending more info, and we can hold off on communication about this to the students. But just to let you know, all students and all faculty will be asked to book through World Travel Services and through Concur. So you all are familiar with this. You all know that all tickets and everything that you purchase needs to go through Concur for reimbursement. Students are also going to be asked to book their travel through World Travel Services. We're dealing with this now with our fall students, and working out now how this works with students that want to book with miles, et cetera. So I don't have much more clarity than that for you now, but just so that you know that the travel piece right now may even become, what we're going to have to work this out. And
Amy,
then
will that be in the letters that go to the students?
unfortunately, the information will be there about how to book through World Travel Services. There are still a lot of things that aren't completely worked out with these secondary questions about, what if I want to book through miles, and we're working through some now with fall. And so those are going to be case by case, but we do have the language in there about with the official line of how students are supposed to book. Yes. Alexandra.
And that I assume that is like it has been in the past, where Joseph assisted students with the booking, that Mike will take over that piece.
Right. And well, in fact, students book their own travel. We don't book student travel. So we communicate, yes, the acceptance letter will communicate these new travel booking rules to them. Yes. And then the final, in terms of receipts, I just wanted to, for those of you that have run programs in the past, we were able on all programs to increase your per diem. So it's not the $300 of receipts anymore. You're not turning in meal receipts anymore. You're submitting what is a in-country per diem. And so it's outlined in your letter, in your contract letter, how you do this, but it's you'll put in the amount of money that you're given. So $40 for the number of days of your program. So, and then that becomes the amount that you'll get as a per diem. You don't have to receive any receipts for that. But that's when you go to, at the end of your program, to put in your, travel, to put in any housing and receipts from the program. You'll also be able to put in this per diem, which is really going to hopefully be a positive boost for you in that sense. All right, well, that is the end of my logistic information. What other questions or concerns do you all have? Alexandra.
I'm sorry that I have so many questions, but in regard to booking through Concur, I mean, when you make your own apartment reservations, often just a bank transfer is necessary. And so how would that then be
Yeah.
done through Concur? You can't book through
Sure.
Concur. You
I
have to
spoke-
go
I
outside.
spoke about this as well. It's so you can do that as well. What you need is the receipt. The receipt at the end needs to be uploaded. They are aware that there are going to be some cases in some locations that will be challenging to book through Concur. And so in that sense, when you're booking your housing, you will upload that receipt. So just remember, everything is reimbursement based. So
Mhm.
yeah, Beth Wee.
Yeah, can you just tell me who from OSA will be booking Jerry, Tim's, and my travel? Or do we do it directly through Concur ourselves?
So the best would be that you all do it directly through Concur yourself if you have a T&E card, and we would give you the codes to
Right.
put in.
Right.
But if not, you can choose your itinerary and I send that to either Sienna or Joni. Joni would be the one booking it. And so, but Sienna can be, in terms of the Stockholm program, can be your
Okay.
liaison.
Because I know in the past Joni's offered, and I'm usually trying to be my own travel agent, but now we
Yeah.
got to use Concur, which I hate, just for the record. But
Yeah.
okay.
So you'd still
Okay.
have to find it on Concur and then just like send her what one you want her to purchase. So it might be easier just to.
So and I'm just throwing this out as a possibility. If Tim and Jerry and I say all wanted to travel at the same time, can I do it for all of us? Or is that not a good idea?
You could purchase. You could purchase.
Although I don't know if a T&E
and that-
card has that's probably going to max out some T&E card.
Yeah, your T&E card, we'd have to,
Yeah.
I think in that case, it would be best to have Joni book it, and we would need your passport information of each traveler and that sort of thing.
Okay. And then one other question, if spouses are going, how does that work?
Each program has a little bit different rules on this.
And I'm thinking mostly on like airfare. Like if Jerry and his wife want to go and Jerry gets Concur paying his way, but his wife has to pay separate.
So
does
yeah,
that
so
work?
they'd have to pay separate, and they'd pay, they would have to, so in general, and in most cases, they would just pay out for another ticket outside of Concur, just however, on whatever, making sure that they book the same thing. I think there may be a way to charge one ticket to a different credit card. In that case, I would recommend working with World Travel Services, who are the travel agents. And just explaining, I want this person on Concur through Tulane, and this one is on personal travel.
Annie, I have a question about this Concur, and I've not used it with the travel, but I mean, travel. Is there any way for them to give the information and just put my card in, work with World Travel to get my card in there without me having to do all the work?
Yeah, Joni, I think that would be absolutely fine. I mean, usually when I'm booking for Concur for official travel, I find my itinerary that I want, and then I send it to Rhonda, and she books it for me, and she charges our T&E card. So I think we can rely on Rhonda to be the travel agent rather than you, since she is officially the travel agent.
Yeah, 'cause I just don't know enough about it, and I don't mind doing it. I'm just, I feel like I don't want to be confused and book somebody in the wrong flight either. So, I mean, if it was already set up and they just use my card, then that's fine. I just have to get my card increased because I know it don't have enough on it.
Meredith, while we're talking, would you put in the chat the booking page that we give to students, which has the email for World Travel Service on it? That would be great. So this is the number that you all can, this is the travel agent that you all can reach out to.
Yeah, I've been working with them for this upcoming site visit, and it's been very easy. Like, they're available by email rather than doing just the whole Concur thing if you're not about it. So I definitely recommend using their services.
And Concur is going to charge us this $4.50 per ticket, whether we use them or not. I mean, that's just part of it.
Yeah,
So-
it's $4.50 through Concur, and then if you're using the travel agency booking, it's is it 14?
I think it's
19.
19, but yes, you are all clear to we'll pay the $19 and you can have Rhonda book your flight. That's totally fine.
So if we go to that site, or at some point, we can just ask for Rhonda or something and just say we're with Tulane?
Yeah, going to the site and this email, Casey put Rhonda's direct email.
Okay,
in-
good.
In
Yeah.
that link as well. So if you want to copy down that,
Yeah.
that email. Natalie, you had a question? So Rhonda, so on the website is reservations at World Travel. And so that also works. That gets to anyone. And the person who has been working most specifically for Center for Global Education her name is Rhonda. So that's her direct email. Natalie, was your hand up? No, okay. Michelle, yeah.
Hi. So at some point, will there be maybe written a documentation kind of laying out the responsibilities in our case of IES versus the faculty, just so everyone knows what their roles are? And then if something happens, we're like ready to go and we're not fumbling trying to figure out who's supposed to do what kind of.
Sure, yeah, we can go ahead and share with you the contract between Tulane and IES, and that lays out what the responsibilities are for IES and what the responsibilities are for Tulane. But in general, it's, Tulane their responsibilities are academic and co-curricular with students. So you're the faculty on the program. And so IES is helping you do logistics in the background and make things run more smoothly. So you're really the student facing, creating relationships with students in your classroom and through the program experience. And they're helping take a little weight off of the reservations. And I know in your case, you all are continuing to do the bookings in city. But for other programs, they're operating at all levels.
And can I sorry, I know you went over this, but I'm still slightly confused. So apologies for making you repeat it. So the deadline was yesterday. There are still a lot of incomplete applications. If those applications are missing passports or letters of rec, then they have until the 15th to complete those, or some indefinite period.
Yeah, pretty much till the 15th. Those are the pieces of incomplete applications that we're giving wiggle room on because they're out of student control.
Right.
And so in pretty much all our programs we've been asked to push up our participant list, our final participant list date because of housing crisis,
Right.
basically, so that people can make housing reservations. So
Then the students who are incomplete applications who are not, it's not because of passport or letters. And does it indicate the difference? We can access why their application is incomplete?
Yeah, you definitely can through Concur, through the application portal, which
Okay, it
you all
says.
have access for.
And so for those students in that category who are incomplete, but not because of missing letters or passport issues, what is their status right now? They are out of the program, or it's at our discretion?
It's at your discretion. Everyone is pending right now. We're on next week, on March 8th is when we're going to send acceptance letters. So if you're working with a student right now who hasn't gotten anything in or is pretty much incomplete, but you really want them on the program, you're able to reach out to Joni and say, hey, I want this student on the program. So if you look at your list and you say, oh, I've been working with the student, her name's not on the list, Joni can open an application for that student. But between now and the 15th. But if they're not on that list now, it means they're not being considered for scholarship.
Right. And so Casey, you just said it says on Joni's spreadsheet what's missing exactly. So that's great. But then, okay, so on the one side, we can say, okay, they seem interested, they seem good, they're missing a few things, we can work with them. But conversely, could we say they don't, can we drop them at this point? I mean, if they're not incomplete for those two reasons, for the two exceptions?
Yeah, I mean, they're on, for all intent and purpose on our end, they're dropped unless,
Okay, I
unless
see.
you guys are telling us
I see.
that we should,
Right.
we've dropped, we
Right.
on the back end are only allowing this exception if it's a passport, lingering passport issue or lingering faculty
Or
issue.
like special pleading on our part to.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.
I have my hand up. Yeah, just to follow up on that, is it worth, because our program is lower than we've had in the past. And I know Sienna already wrote to the students and said, hey, get your stuff in. Do you recommend us trying to reach out to those others who do not have just the two reasons of passport or faculty? Should we try to get more students in our program, given that we're a little bit low?
I think in the case of your program, if you have students in the system, if you've been working with them, if you feel like that,
I can't say that I have. There was one that unfortunately got into another study abroad program, and literally
Yeah.
the one program ends after ours started, so that didn't
Yeah.
work. But I just didn't, I mean, I'm happy to write an email to the ones who are at least a little farther along and just say, hey, you missed the deadline. We'll give you, are you in or out kind of thing. I don't know if that's worth doing or not. And again, Sienna, you wrote to these guys, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth a shot if you want to do it. Like, we can send it out, but it's
And
definitely-
I'm happy to have a smaller group. I've had 40 when we should have had 30. So having 25 is okay with me, but I know you guys need your numbers up.
Well,
too.
your program made budget, Beth, so your
Okay.
program's gonna run.
Okay.
So I would say if there are certain, at the same
There's a real
time,
reason to contact-
there's gonna be shifts on all of these because this is before students have committed, right? So
Right,
we can
right.
send these acceptance letters and there can be some shifts as well. So March 8th, March 15th is when you're going to actually know, okay, this is how many students I have in each of my classes. So those of you that are on the low end need to be careful about that. Make sure that, reach out to your students, make sure that they're all interested and gonna come, that they're excited about the program. And yeah, there is a little room here and there. Right now, the numbers look good for all programs. They're all gonna make.
Sorry, Annie.
Yeah.
No, Alexandra, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Michelle.
So I know each program has a different number for what, a different ratio of students to number of faculty, correct?
Yes.
So I guess you'll talk with the individual programs about whether we're meeting that threshold. Is that right?
Yes, the Paris program has met the threshold. All programs have met the threshold. The courses, not necessarily, right?
Right.
There are some courses that are under enrolled. And so we'll have a follow-up conversation with those faculty members. And my
So
advice
the
is,
threshold for 5 faculty in Paris, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that in terms of overall number of students, but remember there's also that ratio per course. So there and the Paris program, as an example, there's a few courses that are under enrolled.
Right.
And we're going to have to see what's going to happen in the next couple of days. If we can get a few of these incompletes to become complete and
Mhm.
fill those classes. And so for faculty and everyone on that program and under enrolled courses, reaching out to those students is helpful. We're doing it on our end and the advisors are doing it on our end, but really faculty talking to students is the most effective way to get them excited.
And then I promise this is my last question. So there's always this issue in the spring, right? Because they're applying to fellowships and they're applying to jobs and, good for them, right? They have a lot of balls in the air. So the March 15th commitment that they have to make, is that substantial or is that not very substantial? Like, can we expect students to continue to drop, or like when do they really have to put a lot of money in?
By the 15th, they would have done the deposit. So it would be a non-refundable deposit. We do, it is summer and we do usually have here and there some students that say they're going to come. I would say if you have a program of 40, it might be 1 or 2, or if you have a program of 30, it might be 1 or 2 that, commit, do the deposit, and then last minute they get a really great internship. That's just part of it. But it's going to be, it's not 100, it's an early deadline because of these housing crisis. And so we're just going to have to kind of work as best we can with this, but the goal is by the 15th, we're starting to make non-refundable ticket purchases. So we have a cancellation policy. It's on our website that students would be following, that depending how far out from their program they cancel, this would be how much they would get back if they canceled after that date.
Okay.
Alexandra.
In this sense, I know that IES has a cancellation policy. So if students cancel after April 1st, they're responsible for 10% of the program price. If they cancel after April 16th, they're responsible for 25% of the program price.
So can I just a little bit, our cancellation policy takes into account all of these program policies. So you're getting to see some of the back end stuff, Alexandra, that might confuse other people.
Oh, okay.
So if you use the OSA cancellation policy, it will automatically help, you will automatically be compliant with IES.
OSA will cover then the fees that would apply.
Yes. OSA pays to IES, yeah.
I see. Mhm.
Any other questions about logistics?
When can we book our flights?
Well, I think that this sort of depends a little bit about if you're in a course that that is under enrolled, and if you have any question about whether I haven't concentrated on a couple of those under enrolled courses to really know if there's a faculty member that might be in a situation where they may not go. But that's what we'll be figuring out. If you have two courses or your course number is fully enrolled and you feel good, you can start moving forward on booking. If there are some questions around that, then we need to sort that out.
I also think it's better for faculty to book before students, because sometimes students might have an interest in flying on the same flight as a faculty member. So it would be good if you had those, so you could share those with your students in case they were nervous about flying on their own.
Michelle.
To that point, is there an amount of time before the program starts that we need to be there? Is there an amount of time before the program starts that we're allowed to be, what's the?
Speak about internally with your group. I think with the Paris program, you all had sort of set that you wanted to be there 2 or 3 days. Is that right, Alexandra, prior to arrival?
Definitely. I always was 3 days prior to arrival in the city, and I think it's very helpful to be there 3 days prior to arrival. I plan to fly much earlier than 3 days prior to arrival.
So in general, we're covering housing, 3 days prior to arrival is normal. A lot of these housings, you're kind of booking it by the month. So it ends up working itself out. But I know there's a lot of setup that a lot of programs do prior.
But the flights is independent, right? I mean, we can fly whenever we want to. It doesn't necessarily be tied to the timeline of the program, and whether, at least in the past, that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk the official 2-lane policy, which would be if you book outside of your official work dates, then you're asked to show that there's no cost increase by you traveling on an earlier date. But in general, if you are, stay in the budget range that we have set for tickets, everything is fine.
And for housing as well. So if we feel we need to get there earlier to, in my case, see exhibitions, and I might want to take the students to, I do a lot of reconnaissance before, because, especially we haven't been there in 3 years at this point. So I kind of like to get the lay of the land and make some final decisions. Like, how far in advance can we go and have that be covered?
Just check in with us, if it's a few days that you're talking like a week earlier or something, and it's not a huge cost increase in your housing, no problem. If it's going to be a little bit of a larger cost increase that we'd need to think about factoring into the budget, then just reach out to me and we can do it case by case.
Okay.
Any other questions? There's a lot of logistics, I know, to sort of get these things off the ground, and it's been a crazy year for all of us, years. And I'm really excited for all of you and all of these students that are going to get to go. And I know right now the kind of the stress of figuring out all the new rules and the hiccups, it can feel overwhelming, but it's gonna go smoothly. We're gonna roll with the punches and figure it out together as we go. And it's balancing these new kind of requirements and risk management needs that we have to do to make sure we're doing duty of care with really wanting to do what's best for students and having the best academic experience. So that's really the goal here. And you all are the ones to do it. So I really thank you for the time and energy that you put into all this logistic work and being here, because it's not easy. It's not easy to run a summer program. So thank you. So I'm